Gopijana Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatiravanachari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतेरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी शृण्वता स्वकतः कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः हृदयन्तस्थो यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सताम्. Hare Krishna. We are reading, we're continuing the discussion from Canto 3, Chapter 25, verse 34. Chapter 25, the name is Glories of Devotional Service, verse 34. Naikatmat Naikatmatam me spruhanti kechin matpada seva bhirata madiha yo anyonyato bhagavata prasajya sabha jayante mama paurushani. Synonyms: na, never. Eka atmatam, merging into oneness. Me, my. Sprihanti, they desire. Kechit, any. Mat pad seva, the service of my lotus feet. Abhirata, engaged in. Mat iha, endeavoring to attain me. Ye, those who. Anyonyataha, mutually. Bhagavataha, pure devotees. Prasajya, assembling. Sabhajayante, glorify. Mama, my. Paurushani, glorious activities. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Sharanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: a pure devotee who is attached to the activities of devotional service and who always engages in the service of my lotus feet never desires to become one with me. Such a devotee who is unflinchingly engaged always glorifies my pastimes and activities. Purport: there are 5 kinds of liberation stated in the scriptures. One is to become one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or to forsake one's individuality and merge into the Supreme Spirit. This is called Ekatmatam. A devotee never accepts this kind of liberation. The other 4 liberations are to be promoted to the same planet as God, Vaikuntha, to associate personally with the Supreme Lord, to achieve the same opulence as the Lord, and to attain the same bodily features as the Supreme Lord. A pure devotee, as will be explained by Kapila Muni, does not aspire for any of the 5 liberations. He especially despises and has relished the idea of becoming one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Prabodhananda Saraswati, a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, said, Kaivalyam Narakayate, the happiness of becoming one with the Supreme Lord, which is aspired for by the Mayavadis, is considered hellish. That oneness is not for pure devotees. There are many so-called devotees who think that in the conditioned state we may worship the personality of Godhead, but that ultimately there is no personality. They say that since the absolute truth is impersonal, one can imagine a personal form of the impersonal absolute truth for the time being. But as soon as one becomes liberated, the worship stops. That is the theory put forward by the Mayavada philosophy. Actually, the impersonalists do not merge into the existence of the Supreme Person, but into his personal bodily luster, which is called Brahmajyoti. Although that Brahmajyoti is not different from his personal body, that sort of oneness, merging into the bodily luster of the personality of Godhead, is not accepted by the pure devotees because the devotees engage in greater pleasure than the so-called pleasure of merging into his existence. The greatest pleasure is to serve the Lord. Devotees are always thinking about how to serve Him. They are always designing ways and means to serve the Supreme Lord, even in the midst of the greatest obstacles of material existence. The Mayavadis accept the description of pastimes of the Lord as stories, but actually they are not stories, they are historical facts. Pure devotees accept the narrations of the pastimes of the Lord are not as stories, but as absolute truth. The words Mama Paurushani are significant. Devotees are very much attached to glorifying the activities of the Lord, whereas the Mayavadis cannot even think of these activities. According to them, the absolute truth is impersonal. Without personal existence, how can there be activity? The impersonalists take the activities mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and Vedic literatures as fictitious stories, and therefore they interpret them most mischievously. They have no idea of the personality of Godhead. They unnecessarily poke their noses into the scriptures and interpret in a deceptive way in order to mislead the innocent public. The activities of Mayavada philosophy are very dangerous to the public, and therefore Lord Chaitanya warned us never to hear from any Mayavadi about any scriptures. They will spoil the entire process, and the person hearing them will never be able to come to the path of devotional service to attain the highest perfection, or will be able to do so only after a very long time. It is clearly stated by Kapila Muni that bhakti activities or activities in devotional service are transcendental to mukti. This is called Panchama Purushartha. Generally, people engage in the activities of religion, economic development, and sense gratification. Going to see activities. They religiosity, activity, and and after frustration is in sense gratification, the desire to become one with the Supreme Lord are all completely rejected in the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is especially meant for the pure devotees who always engage in Krishna consciousness in the activities of the Lord and always glorify these transcendental activities. Pure devotees worship the transcendental activities of the Lord in Vrindavana, Dwaraka, and Mathura as they are narrated in the Srimad Bhagavatam and other Puranas. The Mayavadi philosophers completely reject them as stories. But actually, they are great and worshipable subject matters and thus are relishable only for devotees. That is the difference between a Mayavadi and a pure devotee. We'll also read verse 35 and have some discussion. Verse 35. पश्यन्ति ते मे रुचिराणि अम्बसन्तः प्रसन्नवक्तारुणलोचनानि रूपाणि दिव्यानि वरप्रदानि साकं वाचं स्पृहणीयं वदन्ति. Translation. Oh, my mother, my devotees are always see the smiling face of my form, with eyes like the rising morning sun. They like to see my various transcendental forms, which are all benevolent, and they also talk favorably with me. Purport. Mayavadis and atheists accept the forms of the deities in the temple of the Lord as idols. But devotees do not worship idols. They directly worship the personality of Godhead in his Archa incarnation. Archa refers to the form which we can worship in our present condition. Actually, in our present state, it is not possible to see God in his spiritual form because our material eyes and senses cannot conceive of his spiritual form. We cannot even see the spiritual form of the individual soul. When a man dies, we cannot see how the spiritual form leaves the body. That is the defect of our material senses. In order to be seen by our material senses, the Supreme Personality of God accepts a favorable form, which is called Archa Vigraha. This Archa Vigraha, sometimes called the Archa incarnation, is not different from him. Just as the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts various incarnations, he takes on forms made out of matter, clay, wood, metals, and jewels. There are many Shastric injunctions which give instructions for carving the forms of the Lord. These forms are not material. If God is all pervading, then he is also in the material elements. There is no doubt about it. But the atheists think otherwise. Although they preach that everything is God, when they go to the temple and see the form of the Lord, they deny that he is God. According to their own theory, everything is God. Then why is the deity not God? Actually, they have no conception of God. The devotee's vision, however, is different. Their vision is smeared with the love of God. As soon as they see the Lord in his different forms, the devotees become saturated with love, for they do not find any difference between the Lord and his form in the temple, as do the atheists. The smiling face of the deity in the temple is beheld by the devotees as transcendental and spiritual, and the decoration of the body of the Lord is very much appreciated by the devotees. It is the duty of the spiritual master to teach how to decorate the deity in the temple, how to cleanse the temple, and how to worship the deity. There are different procedures and rules and regulations which are followed in temples of Vishnu, and devotees go there and see the deity, the Vigraha, and spiritually enjoy the form because all of the deities are benevolent. The devotees express their minds before the deity, and in many instances, the deity also gives answers. But one must be a very elevated devotee in order to be able to speak with the Supreme Lord. Sometimes, the Lord informs the devotee through dreams. These exchanges of feelings between the deity and the devotee are not understandable by atheists, but actually, the devotee enjoys them. Kapila Muni is explaining how the devotees see the decorated body and face of the deity and how they speak with him in devotional service. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome back again for the Bhagavatam discussion that we're discussing, continuing the discussion of Kapila Dev's responses back to Mother Devoti. I think as we were discussing Saturday, this section starting from the verse 33 is actually the response of Kapila Dev to Mother Devoti. Is that one of the questions that she asked in verse 28, where she said, "Yes, you're saying that devotional service is the way to move forward, but I want to understand what is the quickest and easiest way that I can achieve your lotus feet." So Kapila Dev is now starting from the verse 33, where he's now explaining how, like in verse 33, explains the power of devotional service, where he says the devotional service, like how the digestive fire consumes everything that we eat. Similarly, the devotional service destroys the subtle body also, like kind of takes away the subtle body. And then now he's in verse 34, he's explaining how for it. So when then because as Mother Devoti also asked, like what kind of devotional service? Like there is, as Prabhupada is explaining in the purport, there are multiple ways of achieving the Lord, right? There are, as we understand, there are 5 ways of liberation. As Prabhupada also kind of goes in detail about sarubhya, savijya, like you achieve the same form of the Lord, or you're staying in the same place as the Lord, and one of those is also becoming merged into the form of the Lord. So in that context, then Kapila Dev is also explaining what like which one a devotee never desires to become one with me. He always desires to kind of have those have the feasibility to kind of surrender that physical service to the Lord, either by bringing different kind of conditioned souls back to his lotus feet, or kind of being in his physical proximity and serving the Lord and his greater entourage of devotees. So that's, and then finally, then in the verse 35, he is then saying how the devotee kind of sees, always is happy seeing the form of the Lord. Um, Tying this back to what Krishna also tells in Bhagavad Gita, he kind of gives us various lists of places, like he's the taste of the water, and like as Prabhupada also explains through those purports, Prabhupada says that with this understanding, with this knowledge that we have, we'll be able to, there is never a moment that we can feel that we are outside of the presence of the Lord. Simple things that when we see the sun, you kind of understand, oh, this is one of the eyes of the Lord. When you drink the water, then like when you see and one of the verses that Krishna also explains is anything that is majestic is but a spark of its splendor. So it's like when we see somebody who is, maybe it could be just the just in a in a quote unquote materialistic successful way. But even there, you can understand that, oh, this person is, even though he might not be realizing the mercy and the potency that he is receiving from the personality of the Lord, but he or she, the just the fact that they're successful in their field of in their field of work, and the success that they've achieved, or some kind of discovery, or anything that they have made, is as kind of with this knowledge that we have of the Lord, where he's saying is but a spark, is it is the tiny spark of his splendor. So even so, kind of anything that we see around with this knowledge, as Srila Prabhupada has given us, and through these literatures of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and various other stories, we kind of understand that everything in some ways. That's why a devotee is always able to, as Kapila is saying, a devotee is always seeing my smiling face of my form. And also see that in the story of Srila Prabhupada, in the life of Srila Prabhupada. He was going through a lot of challenges in during the World War II, when there were bombs dropping all over the farm. Srila Prabhupada is told that he was seeing the form of the Lord as the time who has come to kind of devour everything. And then eventually, when he was struggling, in some ways kind of struggling, uh, distributing the books and trying to fulfill the mission that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has given him during the Jhansi time and during the Delhi time, when he was kind of going around and everything was seemingly a failure. And even then, Srila Prabhupada was saying, "Oh, this is still in the mercy of the Lord." He was never dejected, and he was always saying that, as Srila Prabhupada later went on to say, "I always felt presence of my spiritual master," and in extinction, because his spiritual master or their spiritual master is never away from the association of the Lord. So in that extension, because Srila Prabhupada was always feeling that loving compassion and loving hug of presence of his own spiritual master. By extension, he was feeling the presence of the entire sampradaya and the Lord himself. So it was always, whatever could be the context or whatever could be the situation, either it could be he became this glorious Vishwaguru, or the glorious Jagat Guru, or he was in during the Jaladuta pastime, when he was struggling even to kind of, he was not sure if he'll be able to see the next sunlight, where he had these two heart attacks. And even those times, Srila Prabhupada clearly saw the form of the Lord, where he was ready to, he was actually taking care of the entire Jaladuta, and like the as we know, the famous fainting where Krishna is orchestrating, and then the entire Dashavataras are actually controlling the entire journey of Jaladuta. So Srila Prabhupada always was seeing the smiling face of the Lord, and with eyes like the rising morning sun, which is the rising morning sun is not quite harsh. You can kind of go out, and it is said that the rising morning sun is also quite nourishing, unlike the noon sun, where it might be challenging, a little challenging to go out and kind of be in the sun. But the form of the Lord, the smiling face of the form of the Lord, is that like of a morning sun, where it is quite pleasant. And and as Srila Prabhupada is also explaining in the purport, where he says, only way that we can actually see the form of the I'm just opening my notes, just give me a minute. Yeah. So, and Srila Prabhupada is also explaining to us that the only way we can even see the form of the Lord, the forms of the Lord are with this knowledge of that Krishna is giving through in Bhagavad Gita, and with the understanding that Srila Prabhupada is doing through these purports. It's clear that the Lord is everywhere, but not everybody is able to see. The only difference between devotees like Srila Prabhupada and the bigger population, as Prabhupada is explaining, it's because their eyes are tainted with love. As it says, the devotees become saturated with love. And once they are saturated with love, as Brahma Samhita also explains, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. So once our eyes are kind of tainted, Premanjana. So Brahma uses this word as Anjana, right? I don't know the exact English word of it, but the one that is used to apply to the eyes. So when the devotees are applying that ointment or the lotion of love, premanjana bhakti virochana, and then that's when we'll be actually able to see the form of the Lord. And that's what Kapila is explaining in the previous verse, and it's kind of expanding that here, because we also discussed in Saturday's discussion also, like how bhakti and mukti is in, like as Prabhupada is also explaining in the previous purport. In mukti, ultimately we kind of want to get rid of everything and just say that, okay, I just want peace, and like just get me out of this shackles of material attachment and entanglement and all of that. But in bhakti, that's kind of much beyond all of that. All I'm needing is to kind of be in the physical service of the Lord, and whatever it could be. It could be I might be in the places of struggling places like Jhansi or Delhi, where I'm being like being hit by a bull, or just getting sunstroke and falling down, or and then, or it could be where I might be being worshipped as Jagat Guru in the forest of Nindu Vrindavan, or I'm being telecasted in BBC, kind of getting glorified all over the world, or I'm getting down from the airplane in India, Delhi, and like this huge ministers are coming and welcoming me, or whatever it could be the place. But in the heart of Srila Prabhupada, it was always the service. It was always bhakti, that at the forefront of his heart was always that this is what my spiritual master wanted me to do, and this is what I'm trying to do. Whether it could be I might be getting favorable results out of it, or I might not be getting, in a way, favorable results out of it. But ultimately, in the heart of Srila Prabhupada, every situation that he was facing through his journey was always a favorable moment, because ultimately he was realizing that uh, whatever effort that I'm putting in is always pleasing my spiritual master, and that's what he says later. In fact, Srila Prabhupada even kind of was seeing his own disciples, and who kind of were ready to do everything that Srila Prabhupada, like if Srila Prabhupada wanted, like yesterday in Sunday school, Mohanlil, like we were discussing with the kids, and Mohanlila Prabhu was asking, it is very challenging. We were just discussing about the destinations, how we would be comfortable to go to a destination where we know that there are certain people ready to kind of take care of us, welcome us. But in the cases of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, we hear that Prabhupada would just randomly see the map and randomly would pick a place and says, okay, now you're going to Istanbul. Now you're going to Australia. Like Australia might be a place, but there's nobody that they knew. In the case of Yamuna Devi and Mukunda Maharaj, and like all these, when they went, they just, like Prabhupada said, okay, now all three of you can go to London and start preaching. Like just three young couples just going to a place of unknown. Like England is a very well-known place, but what they're in, from the perspective of what they're trying to accomplish, it was still unknown. But in their hearts, it was that if Srila Prabhupada has asked me, then we're willing to do. And for the Srila Prabhupada, it was not that he wanted to kind of, he loved as much as all these disciples were loving Srila Prabhupada to a far much greater extent. Srila Prabhupada was also reciprocating with them. He had so much of love. It was not easy. I'm sure it was also not easy for Srila Prabhupada. It was to say that, okay, now you go here or anything. Like anytime any devotee was, this famous story is also there, right? Where when Yamuna Devi was sick, when she came to Bombay, Prabhupada personally came there, was make sure that she had enough rest, she was getting enough medicines. So it was like Srila Prabhupada was in the core of his heart, he always wanted his disciples to be with the most comfortable situation. He was doing everything that he could do in the Gaura Purnima festival in Mayapur and all of that. But the same Srila Prabhupada was asking these disciples to kind of go to some these random places. So it appears like in a contradicting way. Here is a person who wants to make sure that they have enough comfort and getting proper food. There's no discomfort for all of them. But the same person is asking them to kind of go to these random places, which might be sometimes dangerous also. Like sometimes these devotees were going to places which were quite rough, for lack of better term, like quite rough, and you never know if they could actually survive in those places. But at the center of both of their hearts was this devotion that they were trying to please their own preceding acharyas. In the case of disciples of Srila Prabhupada, all the pioneers of our movement, is just their desire, intense desire to serve and please Srila Prabhupada. And in the heart of Srila Prabhupada is this intense desire to please his Acharya, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And in the heart of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, it's always kind of pleasing. Ultimately, kind of we want to please Lord Chaitanya, and because it is his movement, but it is what is driving what was driving them was just this intense connection and uh, feeling of that devotion of pleasing their own spiritual master. So that's the greater definition of bhakti and mukti. Like if for all of these devotees, starting from Prabhu Nityananda and Haridas Thakur, when they were preaching to Jagai Madai, to all the devotees in present times where they are going out and trying to preach, if mukti is considered as the ultimate place of destination, then anything that we are trying to do kind of is quite contradicting. Why would somebody just go in and try to talk to these two very well-known abusive persons and kind of get into such a situation, or go to places where it is like in the place of currently that many devotees are struggling, like in war zones like Ukraine and other places. It's the desire to kind of please the spiritual master. It's and that's the kind of driving force of bhakti. And then there are obviously much more that Srila Prabhupada also talks of how a deity, the prominence of just the worshipping of deity um, in the temples. And so recently I was I'll just end with this one point. Um, so recently I was going through one of the discussion, and the devotee was sharing that I'm not able to exactly recollect the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, but I think it is from 8th canto, where it says that the worship of deity worship as a process, in especially in temples, was started in Treta Yuga, which is during the time of Lord Ramachandra. And the idea of the devotees, when they actually started the worship of deity in as for lack of better term, like as a community center where all the devotees, all the community members could come together and worship the form of the Lord, is to make sure that the relationships that are existing between the devotees kind of enhances. So in many ways, by keeping the deity as the center of the community, and understanding that the deity, as Prabhupada is explaining here, is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, and is come here trying to take our services and trying to assist, trying to uh, bring us closer to him, trying to in some ways kind of helping us assist in our service to our spiritual masters. So by coming there, the what the Lord is doing is actually, we also see that the Radha Shamsundar, for all of us, Radha Shamsundar kind of becomes the center point. Oh, now I have to go and take darshan of him. Now I have to go and worship him. Now I have to go and buy flowers for them. Now I have to go and buy bhoga for them. Everything becomes the center. And through that, as Prabhupada says, when you kind of drop the stone in one center, then the concentric circles kind of create, and then there is no frictions. So Bhagavatam explains that the Archa Vigraha is in through various ways. What Archa Vigraha does is actually kind of enhance the community relationships that we have. And out of many things, one of the primary reasons why Archa Vigraha was started way back in Treta Yuga was actually to enhance the community relationships, and through that way, kind of bring all of us closer to the Archa Vigraha, and understand with that actually proper understanding that the Archa Vigraha is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So with that, I'll end the discussion here. But if there are any additions that the devotees would like to make, then we can have. If not, we can end it here. Yeah, then we'll end it. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo Tagpati Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Thank you so much, Prabhu and Mataji. Hare Krishna.